Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhutaguhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarvavide Namaha. Amase parinamaschet narajvadinibhattvavate sarpadescha tatho vocham adarshe cha mukhattvavate. Abhase parinamaschet. Even if there is abhasa reflection from adhyaksha, the consciousness, will it not bring about some transformation in adhyaksha? For the reflection to emerge from adhyaksha or witness or the sakshi, would there not be some parinama or change? Says na rajvadi nibhatvavata. Just as a snake emerges from the rajju without any transformation or effect on the rajju, so also the reflection as though emerges from the sakshi without any change or transformation in sakshi. Sarpadesha tatho tatha vocham, that's what I have said earlier. Adarsecha mukhattvavata, we also said that the face seen in the adarsha mirror is mithya, and therefore does not bring about any change or effect whatever in the substratum which is adhisthana, the satyam. Ahankurtev atmatvam manyamanasya chinnivatvam akshipati. One who says that ahankara itself is atma, how can then ahankara have any consciousness? Or how can it be enlivened? Natma bhasatva siddhischet atmano grahanat prathaka मुखादेश पृथक सिद्धि यत्वन्योन्य संश्रय. न आत्म आभासत्व सिद्धिश्चेत आत्मनः ग्रहणात् पृथक् आत्मनः ग्रहणात् अवभासनात् पृथक्. Here grahana means avhasanam, that Atma shines in its own light. Atma avhasatva siddhischet na bhavet. If other than Atma, if the Atma bhasa, if the reflection of the Atma doesn't take place for merely more than Atma shining, avhasa avhasaneva Atma bhasa bhavet, that Atma shines and therefore Atma avabhasa, or the reflection takes place. If this is so, tadayat asmin mate anyonya samshaya iti yojana. This is what the Purva Paksha is. So, how anyonya siddhi says adhyakshasya prasak siddhau avasasya tadiyada. If adhyaksha or the sakshi shines, then only avasa or the reflection belongs to that. Tadiyata, reflection belongs to the sakshi only when the sakshi shines, otherwise the reflection cannot be of the sakshi. Avasas tadiyatvehi adhyaksha vyatiriktata. And only if the reflection is of the adhyaksha, then adhyaksha is different. Adhyaksha is different from avasa. If avasa belongs to adhyaksha, and abhasa can belong to adhyaksha only when adhyaksha shines. So tadiyata means that abhasa belongs to adhyaksha. When will there be tadiya means that which belongs to is separate. See, what belongs to me in such as book is separate from me. So abhasa or the reflection is tadiya, belongs to adhyaksha, then it is different from adhyaksha. But first of all, only when abhasa is established separate from adhyaksha, adhyaksha is established separate from abhasa, then abhasa can belong to adhyaksha. And if abhasa is established separate from adhyaksha, then you can say that adhyaksha possesses abhasa. Therefore, that the reflection belongs to the sakshi or face requires a face, and that the face is different from the reflection, requires reflection. That's what he says. This is very anyonya ashaya. तथा च अहमिति प्रतीयमानः अहंकृत्यात्मक एव चेतन आत्मा यदि युक्तमिति अभिप्रायः. Meaning that the Purva Pakshi says that if you thus want to justify this Chidabhasa, then first the separatedness of Chit must be established for Chidabhasa, and separate Chidabhasa must be established from the Chit to be separate. So each one requires the other one for being established, and therefore there is a fault here. So Chidabhasa cannot be explained, cannot be justified, because acceptance of Chidabhasa involves the logical fault of mutual dependence. Therefore, this Chidabhasa cannot be justified, and therefore, ahankrityatmaka atma. Then everybody sees ahankara, and that alone is atma. So ahankara, which in fact is unconscious, is atma according to these people. So now the teacher says, ahankrityatmakasya antah. Ahankara is a vritti or a modification of antahkarana. Antahkarana means a mind, and ahankara is a vritti which is the modification of mind. Ahankrityatmakasya antahkaranasya. Antahkarana of the mind, which has taken the form of ahankara, ahamvritti. Does it have what it takes to be Atma? Atma must exist independent of anything else. Does Ahankara exist independent of everything else? Swapne drishyatmatvenaiva vyavasthitatvat. You may have some questions about the ahamvritti as far as the waking state is concerned, but let us take the dream state. Antahkaranasya swapne drishyatvenaiva vyavasthitatvat. In dream, there are no external objects. What is there is just antahkarana, which has taken the form of those objects because of the vasanas. So all there is in the dream is the antahkarana projection of the mind. So, and ahankruti is a modification of antahkarana. So antahkaranasya swapne drisyatvena vivasthitatvat. In the dream, we perceive the dream objects. And those dream objects in a dream are nothing but the projection of the mind because there are no real substantial objects. Therefore, it is very clear that antahkarana of the mind is illumined by the consciousness in dream. Because the whole dream world is nothing but the modification of mind. Tada avad nirpekshava atma tatra siddha. So there, Atma is self-effulgent in the dream. And the dream world or antahkaranam, it shines only in light of Atma. Atma shines on its own. So dream experience shows that Atma does not require antahkarana for it to shine. Atma shines on its own light and antahkarana shines in the light of Atma. This is very clear in the dream experience. The Ukta Dushtanta Asangati, therefore, the Dushtanta of Chidavasa, reflection, mirror, etc. is not inconsistent, inept. So this Anyonya Ashraya, the Chidavasa requires Chit to be there and Chit requires Chidavasa to be there. So which comes first? If you require a sprout for the seed to be there, you require seed for the sprout to be there. In English, whether it is the egg or the hen. Hen comes first or the egg comes first. Egg requires hen, chicken, not hen, chicken. And chicken requires egg. Here Bijankura Nyaya, Bija requires Ankura, Ankura requires Bijam. It's called Anyonyasaya or infinite regression. So somehow the waking experience cannot prove simply. It has proven already, but then still you need a little complicated logic to prove that Atma is independent. But in dream it is very simple. The dream world shines because Atma shines. Antahkarana is that which is illumined, is very clear. नैव स्वप्ने पृथक् सिद्धेः प्रत्ययश्च दृशेस्तथा रसादेस्तत्र शून्यत्वात् प्रत्ययस्यात्मनाग्रहः. Naivam, that this Anyonyashraya is there is not right. Swapne prathak siddhe pratyasya drushehe. In Swapna, Drushe Pratyasya Prathak Siddhehe. Drushi means consciousness. In dream, it is very clear that consciousness shines independent of the pratyaya or the states of the mind. Why do you say that? Rasade tatta shunyatvat. In the dream you experience the chariots and the horses and the roads on which the chariots ride. So those days chariot was the vehicle there where people may experience all these things in their dream. It's only after you wake up that you realize that there is no chariot and there were na tatra ratha, na ratha yoga, na panthana bhavanti. It's very clear that in dream there are no real chariots or real horses or the real paths. So what are these horses, chariots and horses and paths that are seen in the dream? Nothing but the mind becoming chariot and horse in the dream, the path. So it's a state of mind. Pratyaya atmana, pratyasya atmana graha. So there the chariot itself is nothing more than the mind. Mind takes the form of chariot and everything else. So you think that you are watching a chariot in dream. In fact, what you are watching is nothing but the state of your own mind. Now that may not be clear in the waking also, that is how it is. The waking also, what I really experience is my mind. And my mind takes the form of different names and forms, so I think that I am looking at the names and forms. What I am looking at are nothing but the pratyayas or the modifications in my own mind. Because if there is an external object there and the corresponding pratyaya does not take place, then I don't see it. But that is very clear in a dream. It may not be so clear in the waking because there seem to be tangible objects here, and so it may not be very easy for me to appreciate that I am not experiencing tangible object, I am experiencing my mind. No, that may be tough here. But the dream stage, there is no doubt. Yathades tatta shunyatvat pratyasya atmana graha. So pratyaya, the mind, the modification of mind, such as chariot, is nothing but illumined by the Atma. So Tika says, Pratyasya, Antahkanasya, Drushe, Atmasya, Swapnavasthayam. Tatha. Tatha means what? Mukha, Tat Pratibimvat Prasak, Siddhi. Swapne or Swapnavasthayam, Pratyasya meaning Antahkaranasya, of the modification of mind. Drushe Atma is the witness in the dream. In the waking also, but in dream it is very clear. There is nothing other than mind and illumined by Atma. So just tatha mukha tat pratimimvat prathak. So just as in the waking state, this prathakva is clear that mukha and pratibimba was elaborately discussed. So it's very clear that the reflection is separate from my face. Because reflection, nature of reflection determined by the mirror. It is there if the mirror is there, it is not if the mirror is not, and how it looks like depends upon how the mirror is. So that is not my face. Therefore, reflection is different from my face. And my face is different from reflection because my face exists independently. Even though it is not independent, but it is different. The reflection of my face in the mirror is not independent, but different nevertheless. And my face is different and independent. So, during the discussion of the illustration of the face and the reflection, it was established how each one of them was different from the other. Reflection was different from the face, not in terms of reality, but in terms of its own characteristics. Because characteristics of reflection are determined by the mirror. So reflection has its own mind, its own existence as though different from face. So mukha tat pradvimvat pruthak siddhi. So just as the reflection and the face were shown to be existing independent of each other, so also in the dream, the witness, the consciousness, and the pratyaya, the mind, they are separate from it. Anyonya nirapekshata eva siddhi. Kutaha, how do you say? Because rathade tatta shunyatvat. Well, you are looking, you are watching all chariots and there are no chariots there. Na tatra rathaha, na rathayogaha, na panthana bhavanti. And you take a ride in the chariot and you see a lake and you see streams and you see rivers, you know. So, none of that is there. Swapne rathadi drisharaitasya shruvimanatvat. So in the swapna, all there is mind and no objects, no tangible objects are there. Pratyasyeva sadhyakaramapannasya tatratmana swaprakashetanya nigraha. Therefore, it's only pratyaya or mind or the thought which has taken the form of a chariot, etc. in dream is illumined by the consciousness, the drishihi or the drashta. But then the Atma in the dream, drashta, does not require the chariot to be there. It shines on its own and the thought chariot shines because it is illumined by the Atma. तथा च आत्मा प्रत्यय संवरण निर्मुक्त. So Atma is nirmukta, free from samvarana mishrana, from the big mixing of or blending with the pratyaya. Meaning that in the dream, Atma does not require the mind to be there for it to shine. स्वप्रकाशतया भासमान एव अत्रायं पुरुषः स्वयं ज्योतिर्भवति. That in dream it's well known that Atma shines independently in its own light. विषयाकाराकारित प्रत्यय साक्षी सिद्ध. And that all there are in dream are the pratyaya, the thoughts, and Atma is established to be, proven to be separate from them and existing independently. Vishayakara karita pratyaya sakshi. So pratyayas which have taken the form of the Vishayas. In the dream, that pratyaya, the mind, took the form of a chariot. And that Sakshi was the illuminator of that. And therefore, Sakshi is independent of them, does not require pratyaya to shine, and illumines independently all the pratyayas. Swapna pariyalochanaya chidatmana pratyaya vivekam darshayitva. Swapna pariyalochanaya. By deliberating upon the nature of dream, chidatmana pratyaya vivekam darshayitva. It is shown how chidatma or the drashta or the consciousness in dream is different from the pratyaya, different from the thoughts. Jagrat svabhava alochana ayapitam. Now that we understood the dream, we can see that in waking also that the drishti, drashta shines independently and illumines. So relationship between the sakshi and mind is one of illuminator and illumined. Of the two, the sakshi shines independently, whereas the mind shines only when illumined by the sakshi. So this was established in the dream, similarly can be seen in the waking also. Verse 118. Avagatya hi samvyaptah pratyayo vishayakritihi jayate sayadakarah sabahyo vishayo matah. So now explains in some more detail, how the cognition takes place in the waking state. Vishayakriti pratyaya avagatya hi samvyaptah. Vishayakriti pratyaya, the cognition state of mind in the waking state. Vishayakriti, like a pot thought, ghatakara, patakara. So Vishayakriti pratyaya. Pratyaya, the cognition which takes the form of a corresponding Vishaya or object such as ghatapata. Samvyapta avagatya. Avagati here only knowledge means consciousness. Is completely pervaded by consciousness, illumined by consciousness in the waking state. So this is what is going on in the mind. Jayate sayadakarah sabahyo vishayo matah. So what is it, the external object? External object is that of which the mind takes the form. So what is the part? What happens is that the mind takes the part thought, form of the part thought, and what I perceive is the part thought, and what is responsible for creating a thought of the form of part is called external object. So how do you say that there is a part out there? Because that part is instrumental in the occurrence of the part thought, cloth thought, ornament thought. Jayate sayadakarah sabahyo vishayo matah. So what do you call an external object, bahyo vishaya? Is the akara that is taken by the mind. So see the tika, vishayasya akritiyasya. So vishaya kritihi, vishayasya akritiyasya pratyayah vishaya kritihi. So Vishayakriti is the adjective of pratyaya, Visheshana pratyaya. So pratyaya is what? Vishayasya akriti pratyaya thought is that which is an akriti or form of the object. Like the part thought as the akriti, the form of the part. Eva, as though, so the thought has as though the akriti or the form of the external object. That's one explanation. Athava Vishayasya here akriti iva akriti. The thought as though takes the form of the part, etc. Athava Vishayasya akriti eva akriti yasya saha vishayakriti, or that which is the form or of the part is the part thought. So what is the part thought? Part thought is a thought which possesses a form as though of the thought. Or what's a part thought? Is a thought which possesses the form of the thought. Now as though or of, definitely. Either we can say. that the pot thought arises only because of pot, and therefore it is of the form of the pot. But depends also on certain factors in your mind, whether the mind perceives things properly or not, and I is therefore it cannot be assured that the thought is exactly corresponding to the external object. So as though सह विषयाकृति इति विग्रह अवगत्य संव्याप्तः प्रत्ययः आत्म चैतन्य व्याप्ते विषयाकार प्रत्यय. This pratyaya of the nature of the form of the Vishaya, like Vishayakara vritti, avagatya samvyapta Atma Chaitanya. Avagati means Atma Chaitanya. Is pervaded by or illuminated by the consciousness, that is the self. Jayamane tasmin. So in that, in the light of consciousness, the thought that arises. How do you know the part thought? Because that thought arises in the light of consciousness. So, who is instrumental in that given thought arising? Sabhya Vishaya Ishtaha. That alone is called external object. See, this is how we have taken things for granted. But what we really watch are only our thoughts. And thoughts as though correspond to the object or correspond to the object. And that is how we think that we are looking at the objects. But Swamiji, this is a tangible object, but then sparsha vritti is there. It's also similar. So sparsha also is a vritti, and that is generated because there is as though sparsha of this spot. And so generally we take the Vishayakara vritti as eyes, but it can be Sparshakara vritti also. Any other vritti can be there. You can smell also. Sabhya. So what is called an external object? The external object is that of which the form arises in the mind in the light of consciousness. You would not see that thought unless it is illuminated by consciousness. And therefore, as thought is there, is illuminated by consciousness. So this is one. Now showing the entire mechanism here. Next one. Karme psuyatamatvat saha tadvan karye niyujyate akaro yatra charpyeta karnam tadihochyate. The whole, the vyavastha of the karta, karma, karanam, kriya, all of this is shown here. Karma, ipsitamatvat, that object is called karma. See, Vishayakara, the Ghatakara vritti arises, which establishes that there is a Ghata out there. So that Ghata becomes the object of perception. So it is called karma. Ipsitamatva is a standard definition. So that which is most desired by the age karta is called karma. But karma means that which is objectified. Basically, that Ghata is objectified, so it's called karma. Ipsitatamam is called karma, maybe. So that's a Vyakaran definition. But that which is objectified is called karma. Now what happens? Tadvan karye niyujyate. Moment this fellow here becomes the knower or experiencer of this part, right away response arises. Because of the ragadvesha, the response arises that I love this pot, I love this car, I love this ornament. Then Tadvan, one possessed of this perception, the cognizer, the subject, karye niyujyate. So this object creates that kind of response in the knower. Because of vasanas, then, therefore, this response arises. I want it, or I don't want it. And both of them create the corresponding response. I want it, then I perform an action to possess it. I don't want it, I perform an action to get rid of it. So therefore, matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha. So whenever sense organs come in contact with the sense object, some kind of cognition takes place, which you then say it is heat and cold, likable and dislikable, and some response comes. Tadvan means what? Therefore, the karmavan, so this karta or the cognizer or the subject, when he perceives an object such as a pot, there is a response from him. I like the pot, do not like the pot, I want the pot, do not want the pot. Therefore, a corresponding desire is created, and therefore that desire prompts this fellow to do something about the tadvan karye niyujyate. The subject who is possessed of the knowledge of the object now, niyujyate, is engaged into or is impelled into the corresponding action, because that association creates a response from it. So that's called karyam. Akaro ittacharpyeta karanam tadiho uchyate. And what is that has taken the form of the pot? It's called karanam, antahkaranam. So karta, karma, karanam. The cognizer is called karta because he is the one that is prompted to perform an action. The object is called karma because that is ipsitavam, that is what creates a response. And that which by which you gain that perception is called antahkaranam, is called karanam. So tika says kincha sabhyo vishaya ipsitamatvat kartuhu sadhyataya uddeshyattvena ishtatamatvat karma bhavati. That external object such as a pot, ipsitamatvat, because it is most desired. That's the standard definition of a karma. That's what says Pani has given. Kartuhu ipsitatam karma. That which is most desired by the karta is called karma. Means object here. Karma is not action. Karma is object. The accusative case, second case. Sadhyataya uddeshyattvena ishtatamatvat karma bhavati. Because sadhyataya uddeshyattvena. Because that part then is something to be acquired or something to be given up now, because part creates a response, an impulse. An impulse creates an action upon that part, whether it is acquired or given up. And so, uddeshyattvena ishtatamatvat, it becomes most important for this fellow to do something about it. I must have it or I must get rid of it. In that sense, it becomes most important for this one here. So it's called karma. It is karma of the knowledge, karma of action. So when I perform an action of acquiring or giving up, that is the object of action. Keeping that in mind, I acquire or give up. Tadvan, tadvishayacchavan, karye niyujyate. This knower who came to know of this part, Vishayacchavan, is taken for granted that Vishaya will create some response in you. Many do not. But Vishaya is called Ipsitatama, so it will create some desire and some response in you. It will impel you in something. Vishayacchavan, therefore this knower who is possessed with a desire for that Vishaya, karye niyujyate, he is prompted, impelled into an action. Kuru iti preriyate, not by but somebody else. This Vishaya creates a response. The response, impels me. Hey, do something about it. Take it. Give it up. Get away. Get rid. Something. Yataha iti adhyara. So, then akaro yatacharpyeta. Akara samarpakasya karmakarakataya vishatvam pratyasya karanatvam. Akara samarpakasya. What provides the form to the thought is the object. So that is called karma. And that which takes the form is the mind, is called karanam. So when would you know this object? Only when the object thought takes place in the mind. The object can very well be there, but as long as the ghatakara vritti does not take place, ghata does not become the object of cognition. Therefore, that cognition which is of the form of ghata is instrument, is a reason or is a means by which I come to know ghata. My mind goes out through the eyes and contacts the ghata, but ultimately a thought corresponding to ghata must take place, and that is the means of knowledge. I am the knower, what is known, and the ghatakara vritti is the karanam, the means of knowledge. So karta, karma, karanam. But pratyaya means what? Ghatakara vritti is called karanam. Ghata is called karma. And the one who knows that is called the karta. Some basic grammar lessons. So टीका से यत्र बुद्धि परिणामे विषय आकाश आकारो अर्प्यते तदीय विषयाभिव्यक्तौ करणमिति उच्यते. So that ghatakara vritti is the reason why the ghata is element, and that is how the ghata is perceived, and therefore that is called karanam. The ghatakara vritti or pratyaya or the thought is called karanam. तत्तद बाह्येन्द्रिय विशेषता तत्तद अर्थाकारा बुद्धिवृत्ति विषय प्रमापति विषय प्रमितिम प्रतिकरणम. तत्तद बाह्येन्द्रिय विशेषता. So prakriya is that our mind, which is enlivened by consciousness, reaches out through a corresponding sense organ such as eyes, and that mind takes the form of an object such as a ghata. So, bhashyendriya visheshita. My mind now has taken the form of a part, and so now the mind is qualified by the thought of the part. Tat arthakara buddhivritti. The thought takes that corresponding form, ghata, pata, matha, whatever it is. So when the mind reaches to the sense organs and contacts corresponding object, takes the form of that object. That's called Vishayam. Vishaya. Vritti is called the Karana. I am called the Karta. But here Vishaya, Karana, Vitpade, Kartar, Vitpadayati. Now Karta is being explained here or defined here, arrived at. यदाभासेन संव्याप्तः सज्ञातेति निगद्यते त्रयमेतद्विविच्यात्र यो जानाति स आत्मवित्. यत् आभासेन संव्याप्तः स ज्ञाता निगद्यते. So who is ज्ञाता? So, yad abhasena, Tikakara says, yasya chit pratibimbasya abhasena samvyapta ahankara parinamate. So, the mind or aham vritti undergoes a corresponding change. It becomes ghatadrashta, patadrashta. So, depending upon the change in object, there is a corresponding change in the pratyaya, cognition, and corresponding change in the perceiver. Yasya chit pratibimbasya abhasena samvyapta ahankara parinamate. Ahankara must necessarily be vyapta, pervaded by the reflected consciousness. Then only ahankara can become operable only when it is enlivened by consciousness. Ahankara itself is unconscious, so it cannot become operable, it can't do anything. Ahankara or aham vritti to become pramata. Then also aham vritti must be enlivened by consciousness. Then only it can do its job of perceiving, etc., can become pramata. So, yat chit pratibimbasya avasena samvyapta ahankara. Chit pratibimba, the reflection of consciousness, pervaded by which the ahankara parinamate. Ahankara takes different forms, ghatadrashta, padadrashta, etc. Sah chidatma pratibimbo jnata iti nigadyate kathyate. So that aham vritti is subject vritti. So understand that in our mind itself there are two forms of thoughts, the subject thought and the object thought. Eka ahankratiranya syat antah karana rupini. So this mind has two kinds of thought. Eka ahankrati rupa syat, other is antahkarana. So mind is split into two, subject and object. Subject thought is called aham vritti, and then it gets illuminated by the consciousness, and then it undergoes different changes of ghatadrashta, padadrashta. So sa jnata iti nigadyate. That aham vritti, illumined or enlivened by consciousness, now takes the different forms. Depending upon the object, the corresponding cognition takes place. So cognizer also undergoes sympathetic change. So perception of ghata takes place, so this one becomes the perceiver of ghata. Jnata iti nigadyate is called jnata, the knower, the perceiver. So perceived ghata, perception ghatakar vritti, perceiver the aham vritti. Evam sakshyam nirdesha, all these three are sakshya. The karma, that is the vishaya ghata, the karanam, the instrument vishayakar vritti, and karta, the perceiver, the pramata, the ghatadrashta. All of these three fall in the category of sakshya. All of them are sakshya, witnessed element. The reason why all of these are discussed is to enable us to recognize that all of these are known. They are all sakshya, element. Tataha sakshinam pruthak upalambhayati. So once you clearly understand the subject, object and the instrument, then you know that all of them fall in the category of sakshya. Subject also is sakshya, object also is sakshya, instrument also is sakshya. Evam sakshyam nirdeshya. The sakshya, what is witnessed, is indicated here. Tata sakshinam pruthak upalambhayati. Now the teacher says how the sakshi is different from these three. Pruthak, independently existing and shining, whether these fellows are there or not. These fellows cannot be unless that one shines, and that one shines independent of these. So, etatrayam, trayam etad vivichatra yo janati sa atmavita. Who is Atmavit? Etatrayam, this triputi. Jnata, jnanam, jneyam. Now we understand. Jnata, the subject, jnanam, the karanam, jneya, the object. Iti vivichya asadharanyena avagamya, recognizing that all of these are in the category of drishya. Sakshya. Atratraye paraspara apeksha siddhike. The one characteristic of these three is that each one requires the other two. The Vishayakar Vritti requires Vishaya to take place, and also the Drashta requires the Vishayakar Vritti to be there for him to become the Pramata. So Pramata requires Pramanam, requires Prameya, each one requires the other. So Paraspara Apeksha Siddhike. One cannot be unless the other two are there. Therefore, each one of the three requires the need of the other two for it to be there. Pramata cannot be called Pramata unless Prameya is there, and Prameya cannot be unless Pramanam is there. Mean that Vritti. Pramanam cannot be unless Prameya is there. It can't be called Prameya unless there is Pramata. So, Atratre Paraspara Apeksha Siddhike. Each one is interdependent. That means mithya, not independent. Vartamanam. So therefore that, now this is the nature of these three, that they are mithya, because they are mutually independent. Agama payani, therefore subject to coming and going, Vishaya comes and goes, Vishayakavati comes and goes, Pramata comes and goes, keeps changing, Agama payani. Vartamanam. Swatasiddham. What is that? So, Paraspara Apeksha Agama Payani, they each one of them requires the other two, and therefore they are all they are impermanent, coming and going. Vartamanam, when all of these changes take place, they all come and go, all this drama takes place. Of the Pramata, Prameya, Pramanam, constantly the drama is going on. Swatasiddham, one that does not come and go, which is self-existent, other fellows are all existent upon each other, dependent, which is independent. Tat avadibhutam. Avadibhuta means that which is now the avadhi, the ultimate limit of, you can objectify them, which cannot be objectified further. So by objectification you can drop them, saying that I am not Pramata, I am not Prameya, I am not Pramanam. And then you arrive at the Anagama Apayi, one that is not coming and going, self-shining, self-existing. And so this process of negation concludes where, which cannot be taken further, because a negator cannot be negated. Tadavadibhutam Anagamapai, which is not subject to Agama Apaya, coming and going. Sakshinam yo janati. So this is how the Viveka the author has done. The Lakshana must be recognized. Lakshana of Sakshya are elaborately explained. Lakshana of Sakshi also is elaborately explained in correspondence to that. Then only Viveka can take place. Viveka or separation requires the recognition of those which are separated. So Lakshana must be very clear to us. So Lakshanas are described. Of what is Sakshya Agamapai, what is Sakshi Anagamapai. Those which are Paraspara Nirapeksha, Paraspara Siddhike, this is Nirapeksha Siddhikam. Self-shining, self-existing, unnegatable. Yo janati. This way, one lets go those things, meaning letting go, giving them reality, being identified. There no other self. Then what remains by recognizing non-self is the self. So, self is what remains, is not that I see it or experience it, I just remain. I'm always experiencing myself shining already, then many other things are also shining. There is a confusion. So, not that something new happens, but that what is already happening is just clarified. There is a lot of clutter. Many things are shining. So, two kinds of things are shining. Mithya is shining and Satya also is shining. Anatma is shining, Atma also is shining. Saksha also is shining, Saksha also is shining. So recognizing Anatma, Saksha, Mithya as such, drop means stop giving them reality. Stop identifying with them. Stop judging yourself by them, Whatever the saksha is, it doesn't matter. Today I keep suffering because the Visha is like that and Praman this is like that. I keep on, this is called identification. That I judge myself and suffer by identifying that the body, decide what I think of myself. The ghata decides, the thought decides, all these entities decide, they're all mithya, they decide how I judge myself. So dukkha is simply created by me by this identification and self-judgment based on what is not self. So recognizing them and dropping that process. Don't judge yourself. This is not you. Sakshanam yu janati samyak avagacchati. Janati vanu clearly sees that fact. Samyak avagacchati. So Atmavit, he is the Atmavit, he is the knower of the self. Tvampadalakshya pratyagatmaiti yojana. He knows the essential, what is conveyed by tvam or what is conveyed by I. The immediate meaning of the word I is I thought. But I thought does not satisfy the requirements of this Atma. Not that I thought is totally useless. There is an Atma Amsha also. Anatma Amsha is given, Saksha, there is all given up, and then what remains is the Pampad Lakshya, or the self-shining consciousness that I am. The Duktam Anabhadasya, I don't know what was. This is very simple. Now, bringing a verse from Bhagavata just complicates, that shows just a scholarship, whatever it is. No need for. It's very clear what he said. Why do you bring this verse in there and confuse the whole thing? But it does, so we'll see we'll look at that verse tomorrow and continue. Anyway, this is how I look at this thing as to where your scholarship is displayed and where the need. Shankaracharya would not do this. I would not expect him to do that. But other people may do that. So, okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Daye Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om